welcome. My name is Gerardo Viviers, and I work for the Learning and Development Department of the RPKI. I'm going to be talking about, well, the title is a bit pompous, Enhancing Security with Robust Deployment, but it's actually talking about what you might want to do in order to make your RPKI deployment more robust. So for those of you that aren't familiar with what RPKI is, it stands for Resource Public Key Infrastructure. And it's a framework for enabling internet routing security. It is used by network operators around the world to validate and verify routing information that a network operator is putting out there through BGP. As you know, BGP is an old protocol and there wasn't really any security built into it. So the network operators use things like the Internet Routing Registry and RPKI in order to prevent issues like route hijacking and malicious activities. The RPKI system consists of several repositories, one operated by each of the regional internet registries around the world. So you can see there are RIPE-NCC, ARIN, APNIC, LACNIC, and AFRINIC, and of course several other external repositories which are operated by organizations that prefer to keep their own certificates by themselves. So they manage their own PKI. In these repositories, there are digital certificates called ROAS, so Root Origin Authorizations, which are downloaded using the rsync RRDP protocol to a little piece of software called the validator. So this is just a little lightweight computer that can process these certificates, validates them with the chain of trust to check if they haven't been tampered with along the way. And when it generates a validated cache, this is then downloaded by the router to use in order to verify the BGP announcements that it is receiving to see if they are authentic or not. So how does this work? So the repositories are linked to the trust anchors, the 5 RIRs. And we call them trust anchors because the RIRs know which organization received which IP address blocks at a certain point. So when we issue a block of IPs to a company, they can then create a certificate saying, these are the announcements that I intend to do in BGP. So this AS number is going to be authorized to announce my IP addresses. It's like a digital certificate. In this case, we have here ASNK, which is authorized to announce the prefix Y. When ASNK comes online and starts announcing, hey, I have the network Y, the router can check against the certificate and decide, okay, this is a valid announcement, I'm going to accept it, and it inserts it into the routing table. When ASNX, which is boldly colored red here, decides I am also going to announce the network Y. I also have it. The router can then check against the certificate and see, hey, this is not an authorized announcement. I'm going to refuse it and, of course, drop it from the routing table. Now, why am I explaining all of this? Because in January of this year, there was an RPKI incident. One of the RIPE-NCC members experienced an outage that was of national coverage that lasted for several hours. Because of legal reasons, I'm not allowed to say the name of this company. So I'm going to refer to it as Banana Olé. So the outage that they experienced was quite large because a lot of their routes all of a sudden became dropped by several of the backbone operators. And it was caused because their RPK ROAS unexpectedly changed. From the intentions that they had documented in their ROAS, the intentions all of a sudden changed. They were not the same. So these changes were done by a threat actor who called himself Snow. And this threat actor gained access to what we call the LAR portal and the RPKI dashboard. These are the interfaces that we've made available to the members in order to set up their RPKI certificates. And apparently, the member had a very easy password, which was leaked to the internet. Yeah, so the guy was able to log in directly with no problem. The member did not have two-factor authentication set up, so it was just a case of username and password, and they had no problem changing anything. By the way, if you have an LAR portal with the RIPE NCC, I'd suggest that you try to look on the dark web to see if your credentials haven't been leaked. Because last time I looked, there were like hundreds of RIPE NCC memberships available for grabs on the dark web. Now, what happened after these certificates changed? So actually what the guy did was log into the LR portal, go to the RPK dashboard, and start removing some ROA records and adding all other bogus ones that used a different AS number to make the announcements. The effect of this was that backbone operators across the world who use RPKI to validate the routing announcements started dropping them from their tables. And so from the 9,200 prefixes that were originally globally routed by the member, AS12479, I can't say their AS number because it's a public number. It dropped from 9,200 to 7,400. This caused quite an interruption in the services to the customers. Because, well, you know, they weren't visible anymore in many places around the world. The volume of traffic dropped, and then the services, of course, became unavailable. What happened once the member discovered that this was happening? Of course, they have systems in place to see what their network is doing. And I can imagine that customers started calling in furious because the torrent download stopped, or their little game wasn't, the latency was too high or something like that. In any case, the member found out that there was a problem, and they took steps to resolve it quite fast. So the first thing that they did was contact the RIPE NCC. Once they figured out that they had problems with their RPKI certificates, they contacted us, and we collaborated to try to resolve this problem as fast as possible. We helped them to recreate all their ROAs and to publish them in the repository as fast as we could. And the member decided, well, we don't want this to happen ever again, so let's take some measures to make sure that it doesn't happen. The measures that they took are the measures that, of course, we are going to recommend to you, all of you. And the lessons that they learned were, of course, the importance of having strong passwords when you are using a service like the LAR portal and the RPKI dashboard. Their password was something like RIPE admin, which is a password that a lot of our members use because they see the registry as, oh, that's just bureaucracy, that's just the registry. You know, what kind of impact can it have on my network operations? Well, now they know what kind of impact the registry has. And they, of course, enabled the multi-factor authentication, so the two-step authentication in the LAR portal, so that all the users, or all their users that are listed as authorized, have to pass through those steps before they can log into the portal. They, of course, well, what we want to remark is, of course, the importance of having good network security monitoring, meaning checking that your network isn't being hijacked or that you aren't seeing any weird incidents happening. They had this put in place, and that's why they could see that their ROAS had been tampered with quite quickly. And of course, the other lesson learned was to have a really quick incident response plan. When something of this magnitude happens, you have to be able to respond quite fast and know which steps to take in order to fix this problem. Because they were aware of the RPKI system in place, they were able to identify the problem quite quickly. But in other companies, this might not be the case. What we recommend to everybody who operates a local internet registry and has RPKI is, of course, for your LAR password, use a strong password. This is like teaching you guys at the ABCs again, but as we see, people still use weak passwords for systems that are quite important and critical. We also recommend everybody to use the multi-factor authentication. The registry might seem like something not so important, let's say, but it does have an operational impact, so it is important. You should protect your LAR portal as much as you can. Monitor your network for suspicious activity. We've been seeing that there's quite a lot of threat actors taking action in these last times. With the run out of IPv4, there are many people who are quite eager to get their hands on somebody else's IPv4 to use it for certain purposes. There's also, of course, a lot of bad players who want to disrupt networks for certain reasons. So set up your monitoring in order to check for this suspicious activity. We recommend to develop and test an incident response plan. What do you do if your ROAS disappear or are hijacked or are tampered with? How do you respond? Which steps to take? And of course, monitor your RPKI deployment regularly. These certificates, seems that you publish them once, then you don't touch them again, but it can happen that somebody does get access to your RPKI dashboard, or some other way is found out or developed in order to try to attack the RPKI system. So monitor your RPKI deployment. And of course, where my heart goes out to is educate your staff. That's what we try to do with our training courses on the importance of RPKI. Root insecurity is critical. It's important nowadays if you want to maintain a stable internet. And the potential impact of an outage, as we saw, can be quite great. So in conclusion, RPKI is now a critical part of the internet routing security. As we saw, many of the backbone providers all are dropping RPKI invalid announcements. Many of them are also even requiring networks to have RPKI enabled and to have ROAS created if they want their routes to be accepted. Learn from the recent RPKI incident. It's not just a one-off thing, it might happen again. Implement the best practices to become more resilient. Set up good passwords. Set up multi-factor authentication. Educate your staff. And increased investment in RPKI is going to strengthen the robustness and stability of the internet, which is something that we all want, right? So thank you, and I'm open for questions.
Thank you, Gerardo. So, do we have any questions?
Hello, I'm Bernd, working for DKNOG, so speaking for myself here. So I think the good thing of that is to see this massive impact, because this tells us there is filtering in place. So first I would like to thank everybody who made the efforts to filter it properly on tier 1, tier 2 or IXP level, so this is a good thing. One more comment, if I look at the DKNOG route server and search for RPKI invalids, I see 15,000 RPKI invalids on the DKNOG route servers. Of course, with redundant happenings and multiple appearances on many different exchanges for the same prefix, but this is far too much. So please have a look if your network is creating RPKI invalids and do something against that. Thank you.
I second that. Thank you.
I will say I'll third that, but that would get boring. Any more questions?
Hello. Sorry. Hello, my name is Thomas. This is not specific to RIPE per se, but if you actually know about hundreds of Lear portal credentials on the dark web, and RIPE has excess budget now and then that is returned to members, then why not go and buy those credentials? It is what big corporations do, buy exploits and buy leaks. It's money well spent.
Yes, I would agree on that. Now, we could have a long discussion about the budget. It's a tricky situation because we do try to educate our members on security, of course, but most of you are all network professionals, so you do know that you need to put a really good password and not RIPE admin. And of course, if you understand the criticality of the RPKI dashboard, what can happen if somebody gets access and changes to it, then you will enable two-factor authentication. We have been, of course, communicating towards the membership on enabling all of this. After the incident, of course, everybody in our company had to enable two-factor authentication for the RIPE NCC access accounts, and we've been messaging the membership as well. The problem with messaging the membership is that a lot of them see our messages as spam. So, because we do a lot of messaging. So, yes, we try to get everybody to get on board with security. And, of course, invite you to come with your proposal to the next RIPE meeting or to the NCC Services Working Group and propose it to the membership as a project that we would implement to buy out all these login details that you say. But I think the easiest way is to get the members to put good passwords in the end.
Is the
Who are you?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, Christian from Global Connect. Is the two-factor authentication now opt-in or opt-out by default?
It's still an opt-out. The problem with flexibility and security is always the same. If you force some people to use the two-factor authentication and all they have is, maybe the LAR account to use for RIPE Atlas, and they might feel disturbed or bothered. Oh gosh, I have to do this extra step. But then if the majority of the membership thinks security is an important factor, then I think you should raise your voice and let the rest of the membership know. As you know, the RIPE NCC is a membership operated organization, so we do what the members tell us to do. It's not the other way around. And so, yes, we try to coax the members into, turn it on. It's good for you. It's good for us. But there's always some dissenting voice that says, I don't like it. Sorry.
And remember, it's the RIPE community that drives the policy, not just the NCC members. So everyone in this room is a member of RIPE, and your voice is as valid as any other member and any NCC member.
I second that too.
I spend way too much of my life explaining the difference, but when people complain about, RIPE did this. No, they didn't. It was the NCC. Well. Any more questions?
Hi, Jan from Nordlys. So this happens because someone gained access to the portal or was able to change the ROAS. And and RIPE offers a service where you can have all of your certificates within the RIPE portal, but you can also run delegated RPKI, which I believe is very common, for instance, in the ARIAN region. Do you, from a security perspective, recommend that members do that, or do you believe that having it within the RIPE portal, because that is continuously monitored, etc., is a security-wise better solution than trying to do it yourself? Because that would address some of the issues you've been talking about.
Yeah, that could be quite a long discussion, because you have the hosted implementation, which is what we run, right? Where it's all kind of like centralized. Some people would say, I think it's more secure if I run my own repository, because if the RIPE NCC is hacked for whatever reason, or their infrastructure goes down, I have control over my repository. So you would have two different points of view. Some people would say, keep it centralized, one locker for everybody makes it more safe. And other people would say distributed, like the DNS, would be probably a better solution. So I couldn't say which one is better.
Okay. And the Aaron situation is as much to do with the broken way that Aaron has implemented RPKI. Should we say? It's unintegrated into the RIR.
Yeah, I'm aware of that. I was just kind of having the thought that I think it could have remedied this situation. But again, I also know in a lot of organizations, RPKI is kind of a one-man army. And if that one person leaves the company might be in a very bad situation if there's no one around to maintain the ROAS.
Yeah.
Thanks.
For instance, I would expect the NCC to be around longer than Okta. But I didn't say that. Any more questions?
Henrik Ramsenlund from Security. Just a short question. Do you anticipate more cases like this, and what is the primary contact for people like us to contact you at RIPE?
Let's be positive. No, I don't anticipate more. I expect our messaging to be effective and everybody to set up to multi-factor authentication and to kind of block access to the LER portal. I can say. Depends a lot on the membership if they take action and protect their things. You can always contact the RIPE NCC directly, either by phone on any of the telephone numbers that are listed in the RIPE database as the contacts for the IT team. And otherwise, if you want to contact by email, ncc@ripe.net is the direct email to the customer services. And there is a 24/7 hotline telephone number, which I do not know, unfortunately, out of my head. But you can call that. I think it's on the website published for contacting the engineers of the RIPE NCC directly. I will look for that number and give it to you as soon as I'm able. Okay.
We've got 2 minutes. One more question. Oh.
Hi, Wilhelm again. Thanks for the talk. I think it's interesting what you were mentioning, the fact that RIPE is kind of evolving from simply a registry to something that has direct operational impact, and kind of plays into the whole AES0 ROA debate that was a few years back, I think, about whether there should be an AES0 object for all RIPE space to mark the whole space as invalid, and so on, so to prevent less specific hijackings. Yeah, just an observation, really, that it's that the role of RIPE is really changing with RPKI.
Yeah, so with the operation of RPKI, it seems like the role of RIPE changed, but actually it didn't change so much because we were still operating before the routing registry. So route objects have exactly the same impact. If you had a route object in the RIPE database and it disappeared, then you would have exactly the same effect, right? Your route would be filtered out. So the role of RIPE hasn't really changed. What has happened is that we've taken a more central role in routing security by offering the RPKI service for all the networks to use, right? You could also put this RPKI repository somewhere else, but it makes more sense the registry linked directly to the ROAS, right?
Hi. Well, I have wanted to add something. I'm Max from my own AS number. I was one of the proposers of that policy proposal, and there was no agreement on how to do that. There has been in places like APNIC, LACNIC, and well, AFRINIC, which should implement it, but they've been lagging behind with that for other reasons. But it was decided by the RIPE community not to implement it in the end, not to ask RIPE NCC to implement it. So maybe if there is interest, one thing that could be done would be to go back to the drawing board and come up with a new policy change proposal to try to implement it, to implement the AS0 coverage for unallocated and unassigned address space. We could do that. It's up to us. Me and Melchior, who hasn't arrived yet, we were the two proposers. We're here this week. We're here, well, until tomorrow. So if you want to discuss that, come talk to us, and maybe we can revive the policy change proposal.
I second that.
Okay, I'm afraid we're now definitely out of time. Thank you very much, Gerardo.
Thank you, everybody.